The Honest Money podcast is brought to you by Prescient Investment Management. We consider everything to give you the advantage. It's the future of investing. Prescient Investment Management is an authorized FSP.
Welcome to Honest Money. I'm Warren Ingram.
This is Pieter Villiers.
We're in the early stages of a new, what do we call them? Series. And this is really aimed at people in different life stages. And so this is the series around people in their early careers. And this is the second episode. So in the previous episode, we started with the big mistakes to avoid. And I guess, well, not really the big mistakes, but the big decisions you should make first. I nearly messed that up and we'd have to start again. Today we're going to be talking a bit more about debt. And I think if you want to talk about the landmine that could really derail your whole kind of financial position before you've started, it's probably debt. And so for me, it is an episode or a topic that deserves its own episode. We could probably spend 4 months just talking about this, but then you and I would both be asleep by then and we'd have no listeners. So it is very important, and we are going to get into a bit more. And I think maybe, in Honest Money, we try to be positive. We try to give you positive choices. We try to, help you make decisions that are rewarding for your life, that talk to your values as a human being, and then allow you to construct intentional financial planning. But this is one of the episodes where we're going to say don't quite a lot. And I'm sorry about that, but someone needs to tell you this stuff, and it's our job to do that. So we're going to get into it and give you all the things that you potentially shouldn't do. And then after that, we'll get back into future episodes with all the positive things you can do again.
Yes. So if you're in your 20s to 30s, this episode is exactly for you. Even if you're a bit older than that, maybe some of the principles that we talk about today would still be helpful for you at that stage in life. So debt is one of those things where I think it's such a societal norm to take out debt. We joked about it before we started recording. Like, you probably now, when you've graduated from university, you've got your degree, you get approached by the banks. So either they visit you at uni and they've got, they have these nice lunches, they bring you pizza, and then like, cool, you now qualify for a credit card. Or you get an email, you qualify for a personal loan. And they always make it so like exotic. You always wanted to go on this holiday to the islands. You can pay for this with your personal loan, and they make the amount so big. And then you have to really zoom in to look at the fine lines of, okay, but this is going to cost me 27% interest. At that point, you may not really understand what that means. Like, no, it's money. I can just go and spend it. Why not? So that's a trap. It's a massive trap. I like to think of debt, and more specifically bad debt, is like if you're trying to drive a car with the handbrake in the upright position. So this has probably happened to most people. When you get into your car and you just hoy on the petrol, and the car does this. It's like it's trying to move, but it's not moving. You're like, what's going on? And then, my handbrake. So that is trying to build wealth, is having too much debt. Trying to drive a car with having that handbrake in the upright position. You may move a little bit, but it's going to be slow and painful. You're going to hear the brake pad screeching, and you're just going to, in your mind, understand that now it's going to cost me more money because I have to replace those as well.
Absolutely.
So we don't want you to make that mistake this early on in your life. So I think maybe let's break debt into 3 main categories, because not all debt is necessarily bad, but having too much debt is bad. So in my mind, I can look at debt in 3 ways. So there's your bad debt, which you should avoid at all costs. There's no negotiable here. It's your credit cards, it's your personal loans, it's your overdrafts. Typically with those types of debt, your interest rates are very high, like above 17%, 18%, 30%. If you go further and you go into like the shark payday loans, the loan sharks, these can go into the hundreds of percent. It's impossible to build wealth having those types of debt. So avoid them at all cost. Then in my mind, there's neutral debt, which is neither good nor bad. This is in the case where maybe you have to take out a loan to buy a car loan. Now, the caveat to this, you need something to get to work. You need transport, and maybe there's no public transport that you can use, and you can't carpool with someone. You need to get to work to earn a salary. Cool. And maybe probably in this stage in your life, you don't have enough savings to buy a car cash. So it's reasonable to then take out a car loan to buy a car. Now, there's a lot of caveats to this, and we'll go a bit deeper into that in a second, what you need to look out for there. But then if you buy a car to get to work, this doesn't mean you need the latest Audi or the latest Bucky or the Hilux or BMW. You need a car, a functional, fuel-efficient car. So it's fine safe is important. So it's fine to go and buy a second-hand or a third-hand or a fourth-hand. My first car was a fourth-hand car, and it served me well. And to go buy something that is appropriate for the purpose of that stage in your life. Later on in life, when you've won the game of life and you've got a lot of money, you can buy the bigger cars. That's fine. But for this stage in your life, a neutral debt would be seen like, I need to take out debt for a specific reason, and I'm being responsible with that. Now, if you take out too big of a car loan to buy a car that you don't need, that's bad debt. So be careful. And then we get...
Can we stay on that for 1 sec? So what would you say if you're, let's say for every 10,000 Rand that you're taking home, it's actually arriving in your bank, what proportion of the 10,000 Rand is acceptable then to put into paying off a car?
I would say about 10 to 15% for all type of car payments. So now it's the car loan, the insurance, the fuel, the maintenance. I would say in that kind of environment.
10 to 15%.
Yes.
Okay. So if you're paying a bit of tax as well, which we all will, it's probably going to end up being quite a small percentage of your salary, of your big salary. So I think this is one of those where Pieter's a tough taskmaster. I would say you can take about a third of what you earn. So if you because in the early days, if you've got no option, it might end up being, if people are earning 20 grand a month, that 10 or 15%, they can't afford anything.
That's also true.
Might get a scooter.
Depending on the amount that you earn, yes.
So if you don't want to drive a scooter in winter in Cape Town, so that's true. I mean, I think it's about size, but starting out salaries, I would say maybe a third. The thing where I'd fall back into your camp is that it's hopefully the first and last time you finance a car. So it's okay for your first car, and the car must be affordable. And then my sensitivity analysis when I've done this, and I'm not an actuary, I feel like cars get significantly cheaper once they've done about 30 to 35,000 Ks after being brand new. So definitely don't buy the 5,000 K car and think to yourself you're getting a great deal. That's called a demo. There's not a hell of a difference between the new and the demo price. After 35,000 K is great. And then you would say, there's some cars that are operating with 100,000 Ks that are just getting warmed up and they're perfectly fine. And I'm a car guy, so I always struggle with that one. But I think it's true. It's not that it's not true. It's just emotionally, I can't. But maybe 35,000 and more. And then for your first car, if it takes up a third of your salary, fine. But you're giving yourself the goal of not paying it off. Don't pay it off over 6 or 7 years. That's rubbish. You're giving yourself a goal of clapping it in 3 years. 4 years if it's if things aren't working out well, and then you build up cash for the next car. So we're not saying to you, where Pieter and I agree 100%, is you're not in the life cycle of financing cars all the time. Your first car, it's neutral debt. You finance your second and your third cars, we're going from neutral to bad debt. You're going backwards now, or you've got the handbrake.
Yeah, and this is very situational dependent. In the previous episode, we also touched on it's you versus you. Someone earning 10,000 a month versus 100,000. It's a massive difference in their capacity and what they can afford. Yeah. So I think especially in the beginning, it's difficult when we go with percentages because it's very distorted to the exact rand value that we earn. So yes, if it's in the case that you've got no savings and you need a car, it's okay to spend a little bit more of your salary on that car, given the specific scenario that you're in. But even so, even if that is the case, don't go and buy new. If the car is 300,000 Rand, you're okay going for a second or third hand car that's maybe like 5 or 6 years old, to just get started in your life. And then once you can try and make it work within your budget to afford that, you can start saving and later on have a bigger deposit on a car, or hopefully buy cash later on in life. So it's just getting out of the gate. It's tough. It's a really like a catch-22 when you're this young, because there's like, you need to do this, but you also need to do that. So which one comes first? I need to save this amount, but I also need to spend it on a car. So use it as a guideline. What we don't want you to do is over leverage yourself to the point where life becomes so stressful because you have to take out credit card debt to pay off your car loan. Then you go in a very dangerous cycle that's difficult to get out. So it's just being reasonable as to what you can afford. And again, don't worry about what society tells you. Everyone wants you to drive the latest wheels, and you think they care, they don't. So I think maybe on the car situation, because this is probably the biggest mistake I see young people make, is they buy too much car. Sometimes it's maybe because they don't know. Maybe it's because they just, pulled the plug and then they didn't realize what they were just doing. So some of the traps, when you go to the car dealer, let's say you have to buy a car, it's very important that before you go, you understand what you can actually afford. So now at this point, you've done your budget, you know what's coming in, what's going out, and let's say you've got your after-tax salary and you've done that 10 to 30% margin to say, all right, this is more or less what I can afford per month. Now, remember, if you take out a car loan, you're also going to still pay for fuel and you're going to pay for insurance, which at your age, if you're below 25, you're high risk to society, so you're going to pay more there. Yep. Good luck. And there's probably going to be maintenance that you need to factor in as well, especially if it's a car that's not on a service plan, which at this stage in life probably not going to be able to afford. So that is in totality what we're talking about, the total cost. Now, you have to understand that number per month, because if you go to the car dealership, probably what they're going to do is they're going to ask you, so what can you afford per month? And then you can basically buy any car depending on how you play with the numbers, how you tweak it. So if you buy a car and you're going to pay it over 10 years with a balloon payment, you can probably afford a new, like, luxurious car. You're just going to pay for the rest of your life. So it's very important because they can kind of manipulate the numbers to make the car fit into your monthly installment. But that's where it's very important to think about the term, how long you're going to take to pay off the car. Most of the time you can choose up to, I think, 6 years. But I agree, if you can squash it down to 3 years, you're going to save so much in interest. And then also, forget everything we say and remember this one point: please don't take a balloon payment.
Yeah.
That's, in my mind, a legal scam and it should not exist. What is a balloon payment? What happens is they say, let's say your car costs 100,000 Rand. They tell you, okay, we see you can't afford this installment per month, but don't worry, we'll just take 25%, 25,000 that we're not going to pay for now. We're just going to take it away and then forget about it. But at the end, after term, after paying off the car, we add it back again. And then you need to refinance that. Often happens is in your mind, you're like, yeah, but it's fine. I'll save up enough to pay that 25%. Doesn't happen.
No one does that.
No one does that. Yeah. You get to that point in life and you're at a point where you thought you paid off your car. No, surprise, 25% with interest is now added. And now you extend the time that you have to pay off the car. And now you're further behind. So,
well, actually what happens, let's be honest, is what actually happens is the car dealership says, why don't you trade in the car and we'll do another new balloon payment and start again.
So they're going to try and keep you in that cycle because it's a business like anything else. They try and maximize profits. But you, for certainly in your life, do not have to replace your car every 5 years. That's like a lie. Please don't. Most of the new, like the cars we drive today, can last for 10 plus years. So if you take care of your car and you take it for its services, and a lot of the stuff you can learn to do yourself, like changing the oil and stuff like that. It's not rocket science.
Just not me. I might break the car, but
also
I hear
not,
you.
Like I'm very limited in my mechanical skills.
I can change the tire. I don't have to pay someone to do that.
Luckily, but maintaining the car over time is a lot cheaper than having to buy a new one every 5 years. And
absolutely.
And society would like you to believe that every 5 years you need to replace your car, just like they would like you to believe every 2 years you need to replace your phone. It's a lie. If you keep your car and you pay it off and you maintain it for a long enough period, the car, even if you pay for services, that's going to be a little bit more expensive. It's going to be a lot cheaper than paying for a new car installment. So try and not fall into that cycle of having to finance your car. And once you've paid off your car, you feel like you need to now get a new car and refinance that. You're just going to put yourself behind.
I mean, you used the example of air, which I think is a great one, is let's say you've got a car that's worth 150,000 Rand and it's super reliable and it's going well. and it costs you 50,000 Rand in a year because there were some big parts that had to get replaced and all that. And you're going to say to yourself, but hang on, my car only costs like 150 if I have to sell it now and I have to spend 50 grand. I'm going to rather sell the car. That's bad math. Because actually, if you're going to spend 50 and that's going to give you another 5 years of great driving because you have to replace the engine or something radical, whatever it is, that's actually worth the cost. Because it's if you take a car installment, I don't think you get car installments for under 5 grand a month. And on its own, that's just 1 year at 60 grand, right? So even an expensive service, if it's expensive relative to the value of the car, that's not the calculation. It's relative to how much am I going to pay on a new installment on a car that I now have to finance for the next 5 or 6 years or whatever it is. Don't do that. The maths is very simple. Expensive services, if they're well done, and that's all that it costs you every year in terms of capital payments, then you're just spending money on petrol and insurance. That's fine. Like that's a cheap car.
Yes. And if you can save money on your car, which is probably going to be a big line item on your budget, and you can rather invest that money, and we'll get to that in a later episode. It's not only that rand amount today, it's that rand amount compounding over 40 years, and that's massive. If you can save like $500 on your car that you didn't take an installment, buy a bigger car that you need, and you just start investing at like the age of 20, it's going to be a massive difference over your long-term financial picture. So don't only think about today, think about your future self as well. And at this stage in your life, it's okay to go a bit.
Maybe one last point, and we need to move on. But I often talk about having a money buddy. When times are tough and you're trying to make decisions, having someone doesn't have to be a financial planner necessarily, but someone you trust that's unemotional, that can look at your problems from the outside. Now cars is a good one. So I love cars, and I always have to. I can find very good reasons why I need to replace my car, and I convince myself. But then my money buddy also happens to be my wife. And then the conversation usually starts with me saying to her, like gently floating the idea past her that I might need to replace my car. And then she usually starts with a question. It's the same question she asks when I float the idea of buying a new TV. What's wrong with the current one? And I don't always have a very good answer. And that means that we make collectively very good car decisions and very good TV decisions. We don't replace them very often. So I would say the same. If you know that you're one of those people that's quite emotional about cars, then that's knowing yourself. Then choose a car buddy, someone that, but now you've got to choose carefully. Don't choose someone who loves cars as much as you do, because they also want you to buy the replacement car. Choose someone that you respect, that's sensible around vehicles, that actually is in a good financial position as well, and get them to help you. Because then you get a great emotional stabilizer. The car salesperson, for the 30 minutes it takes him to sell you a car, will be your best friend ever. And let's face it, good car salesmen are unbelievable at their job. And that's their job, is to sell you a car, and they come up with these packages. So that's not your best friend. Go and find your real friend and get them to help you make this call. And I find that kind of sounding board, a trusted sounding board in emotional decisions like this, maybe also house purchases and stuff, very valuable to help protect you from yourself. If you know that, if you're like Pieter and you're unemotional about cars, that's great, but if you're like me, you need a car buddy.
Yeah. And it's understanding yourself. Some people might find it easier to just say, I'll drive a skadonkie for 5 years and it's okay, I don't care. Where others people may value status and the way they perceive. Maybe they've at a point in life where they can finally do something that's visible and they do like the attention. It's okay, but just keep it within your ability at that point in life. Later on in life, once you've listened to all the episodes of the Honest Money podcast and you're successful, you can pretty much drive whatever you want, but it's going to take time to get to that point in life. It's just looking at where you are now.
Yeah.
So that's kind of neutral debt. So it's not bad nor good. It's kind of like you need it, but just be careful. Then good debt. Now, I know there's a lot of people that says it doesn't exist something like good debt or debt is bad. I disagree. So I think if you take out a loan to either increase your income earning ability, so a student loan, you went to university, you got a good degree, that will enable you to get into a good career, that you can progress and earn a lot. I would consider that as good debt, as long as you pay that off in time. And also something that's an income generating asset. So a rental property where you take out a loan to buy a property and it earns you money. It's putting money back into your pocket. Buying a house that you live in, probably more neutral debt. It's probably not good nor bad. It's not really making you money. It's costing you money. It's not really an asset. It's a lifestyle asset. We don't going to go too much into that. But what we think about at this point in time, when maybe at this point you probably have student loans, so that's going to be part of your monthly budget that you have to pay it off. Typically with those types of loans, depending how it's structured, the interest rates are not too high. So might be close to prime +1 +2. So let's say about 10-11%. So it's going to have to try and pay that off over time. But when we get to a house, I don't think in your 20s you have to be bothered to buy a house at this, unless you inherited money or you are really in a lucrative career and you've got the margin. Please don't feel pressured to have to buy a house in that time. Because again, if you look at your budget and your income, and let's say in the scenario you have to buy a car, so that's 20% going to the car. Now you also buy a house. Now you're at 60% of all your paycheck just going into a home, into debt, just to survive. It's incredibly stressful. You're going to feel trapped in your career because you have to work to earn money. And if you miss 1 month, it's a disaster. In your 20s, you don't need that kind of stress. It's okay to rent. Even better, like you mentioned, if you stay with your parents, if that's a possibility.
Share a house with friends.
Get a flat that you can share with someone. It's okay. It's socially acceptable. You're probably still single. You're not married. You don't have kids, so you can still do it. Try and save as much as you can, or try not to spend as much as possible, especially when it comes to debt. I always think like if I have to look at the magnitude of the decision, how much time am I going to spend on that? If it's going to take you like a week to decide on, am I going to take out a Netflix subscription or a Spotify subscription? It's like R100 decision. Don't spend too much time on that. But if it's like I'm going to buy a car that I'm going to have to pay off over 3 to 5 years, then absolutely spend a week to make that decision. Yeah. Don't go off the fly like, I saw this advert, it's on special, it's a great deal, and they're going to tell you at the dealership, this is the last car in existence that's at this price. If you don't take it now, they've got all the marketing tricks that in the book. If it's a big purchase, a big amount, take time to do your proper research, due diligence. There's a lot of information on the internet on how to buy a car and traps to avoid. Please don't rush into these decisions. Be cautious. And also, if you're even thinking about buying a house, it's not as simple as I'm going to buy a house because I want to stay somewhere. You have to do your research. You have to understand the implications, the cost involved. We're not going to go into all of that in this episode. It's too much. But try and not make these big purchases in your life this early on, because it's going to put a lot of strain on your financial position, and it's not needed at that point in time. Later on in life, again, you may be in a better position where you can buy a house and you'll have kids and it's going to be appropriate. But don't feel pressured by society to do it at this point.
Yeah, I might even be a bit stronger than that. I think, just as a general principle, for me, debt is I like your analogy of the handbrake. For me, it's a weapon of wealth destruction. So anything like that, like if you're playing with something that can totally destroy your ability to build your financial future, to getting to freedom, then you should, until you're very sophisticated around debt, you should avoid it. And that would include house purchase. And so I think, someone who just encourages you to take debt to buy a house either doesn't know what they're doing themselves, and they're just doing it because that's what the whole of society does. Remember, a lot of society's financial decisions are made in the same way that you see like sheep walking in a line or cars walking in a line. The one's just following the other because the one in front is just going there. If you could have a conversation with a car and you said to the car right in front, why are you going in this direction? The answer would probably be, I have no idea. Just going there now, or I'm hungry, or I'm thirsty. Not a lot of sense in why they're doing something. So for you to mindlessly follow what everyone else has done doesn't mean you're making great decisions. You're probably making actually quite bad decisions. That's why 5 out of 100 salary earners get to financial freedom. They're not in the herd following the car in front. They've gone somewhere on their own and they're grazing beautiful pastures and drinking fresh water all the time. They get there. You don't if you follow. So I would say you buy a house very carefully, and you do it once you're going to stay in that house for 10 or 20 or 30 years. rotating properties every 2 or 3 years as you earn more, et cetera, might be sensible, but you do that with rent, and you do that again carefully. But you know, to get out of a 1-year lease is not nearly as hard as getting out of a 20-year bond commitment when you owe the bank a lot of money. So I think you just avoid debt as much as possible when you're starting out. If you're sophisticated around money and you can deal with spreadsheets and all that stuff, well done. Still avoid debt. You know, your knowledge as a CA, you think you know everything. It's not true. I've seen lots of CAs that are in their 40s with a lot of debt and no way out. Yes. So actually be very careful with debt, I think, is a starting point. You want to make decisions from a position of strength, which means money in your emergency fund, you know, having a positive bank balance, you know, building up some investments, and then deciding about what you want to do with your future is much better position than you owe money on a credit card, you owe money on your car, you've got a bond, you hate your boss, but you can't quit your job because you owe all this money. That is a real recipe for disaster. People who work from a position of strength, in other words, you've got enough money that if you have to change your job and you don't work for a month or two while you find a new job, people in that position tend to have much better careers because they're actually working where they want to be. They're happier. They work better. You know, financial freedom is not just about stopping work. It's about the freedom to make decisions. And it starts with this episode. This topic is the thing that derails most people, as far as I'm concerned. And it's you mentioned in the previous episode. It's about small little decisions that you make day after day after day that either increasingly make your life better or they take you off. And it's here. It's when your banking app says increase your credit card facility to 250,000 Rand, the answer is no. It's not, I can do it. The bank's offering it to me. I might as well take it. No, you don't need to do it. Don't buy the whole jargon around what's it, my credit card score. I must have a huge credit facility so I can improve my credit score. A great credit score is I don't owe much money to anybody and I pay it all off every single month, and I don't use debt. That's a good credit score. A bank balance where you've got cash in the bank and investments of 5 million Rand. I bet you'll get a great credit score. So don't worry about that. That's like another myth that we must deal with one day. But from my perspective, stay out of debt, make positive decisions. If you have to have debt, we've covered it. Neutral debt, I agree on the car. Credit cards, personal loans, those are your weapons of wealth destruction. And then buy a home, in the next season when you're in your, maybe mid to late 30s or even older. That's the time to buy a home when you put down a huge deposit. The bond repayment is very easy for you to deal with. That's not a bad position to be in. But at this stage of life, just ignore everyone that tells you to buy a house. It's rubbish.
I like the analogy of the sheep walking in a line. I tend to find in finance and money generally, if you swim in the opposite direction, you'll probably be better off. Don't follow the herd because the herd makes a lot of noise and a lot of opinions. And in Afrikaans we say, "Leë blikke maak die grootste lawaai." Those who know the least amount will say the most. So just kind of dumb out the noise. Be responsible when you make these. If you have to make these big decisions, take time. Don't be reactive. Don't buy emotionally. We talk about this a lot. Money is 20% knowledge and 80% emotionally. Most of the time we go buy the car and we go buy that house because we feel good about it. We want to stay there. It's a feeling, but it's not always the best decision when you just think about the feeling. You have to use your mind, apply your mind as well. That starts with getting the knowledge, that 20%, and then being conscious. So, try and avoid ignore the emails that tells you take out the personal loan for that holiday you always wanted. If you do have a credit card facility, use it responsibly, pay it off at the end of the month. Don't go down that line, that rabbit hole. It's not free money. It's not money that you can go and spend on one day only and Black Friday and think it's okay. You have to pay it off at the end of the month. And when it gets to these big line items, a car, a house, I'd say spend at least a week at least on a car to decide if you even want to buy a car. A house is a different ballgame. That's probably going to be a month of decisions to consider. But at this point in your life, try and minimize debt as much as possible. Maybe you do have debt already. That's okay. Find a way to live below your means, and then every rand and cent you can save, wait into the debt to get rid of it as soon as possible. Start with the lowest balanced amount. Let's say you've got 5 credit cards. Start with one with the lowest balance, pay it off. Once that is paid off, you use that cash flow and you pay the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth. It's like they call it a snowball method to try and get rid of that so that you can finally put the handbrake down and you can start moving in life. So this concludes our episode today about debt. The next one, I was thinking we should talk about how to actually put together a budget and how to build an emergency fund, because I think those are the two next big habits and skills to learn to put in place to position yourself for success later on in life. So if this is the first time you're joining, go watch our first episode where we touched on the big things to consider when you earn your first paycheck. And then the next episode, stay tuned for that so we can cover how to actually put together a conscious spending plan and an emergency fund.
Thank you so much for watching or for listening. Please keep sending us your questions and your comments and your suggestions for topics. We'll do our best to answer them. And as always, thank you to Sealand for kitting us out. We appreciate the support.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The Honest Money podcast is brought to you by Prescient Investment Management. We consider everything to give you the advantage. It's the future of investing. Prescient Investment Management is an authorized FSP.